it lives in this weird liminal space between thriller and romance, and also cuckoo bananas. Hello, girlies. Hello, gals. It's time for me to talk about everything I read in the month of August. And I thought August was going to be the best reading month ever because I read all of these books, all 5 books that I'm about to talk to you about in the first 2 weeks. I was like, oh my gosh, look at me, I'm a reading machine. I read all these books in the first 2 weeks of August, and then I did not finish another book. But that's okay. What I did read was interesting. We have an interesting little mixeroo. Are you excited? Are you ready? Are you prepared? I hope you are, because we're about to start. We're about to jump into what I read in the month of August. First thing I read was Falling by T.J. Newman. I don't even know where I saw this book. Maybe Chandler? I think Chandler read it. I feel like someone read it in a vlog, and I was like, that sounds great. This is a thriller that is like really high on like the high stakes premise. This book, although it is written by a woman, reads a little bit like a boy book. Like, this is a book that your dad would read. Not in a disparaging way, just in a way that like this felt like an action-adventure movie. That being said, I did really enjoy it, and it is written by a woman, you can tell. There's some really strong female characters. Let me tell you about it, okay? A little bit, I guess. Falling is the story of this plane that essentially is like held hostage. The captain gets word once he's in the air that his family is being held hostage back at his house, and unless he crashes this plane, they're gonna... his family, which is his wife, toddler age son, young son, and baby. I don't remember what gender the baby is. So he has that happening at home, and he's like trying to communicate the best he can to his crew without like putting his family in danger. And so we get a lot of different perspectives. Like we're getting perspectives from the wife back at home, and we're getting perspectives from like an FBI agent that is working on the case on the ground, and we're getting perspectives from the flight attendants that are working the flight, as well as the pilot that this is all happening to. And it is very like fast paced. It's not like twisty turny like big reveals type of thriller. It is just like, how are we going to get out of this tricky situation? And like that's where some of the twists come in. It's not like we know everything, but like the twists aren't the foundation of the thriller. You know what I mean? Some like thrillers really rely heavily on their twists to like work, and this works because the situation is like so frightening in itself. I probably wouldn't read this book on a plane, because that seems scary. But it was really good. I read it like quite quickly because it's the kind of book that you want to read quite quickly. Okay. The next 2 books are by the same author. I read A Deal with the Bossy Devil and Failure to Match, which are both books in a series called Bad Billionaire Bosses. And I have no idea where these books came from, and I'm going to be totally honest with you. I read these so fast and back to back, and I have very little memory of them. I remember having a good time. I remember having a truly delightful time, loving them. The Deal with the Bossy Devil, I think he's her boss. I do believe he is her boss and her sister's boss, and she gets fired at the beginning of the novel because she does hit him. It's coming back to me as I start talking. It's Halloween. She's dressed up as Where's Waldo. She smacks him with a cane? Why does she have a cane? I don't know. And then she gets fired, and then her sister also subsequently gets fired, and then she has to work as his assistant to like earn both their jobs back. And that's the premise. And then obviously they fall in love because it's a romance novel. It's also pretty spicy. Both of these books I would say are like on the very spicier side. Like high spice. But good. Really great time. I like the second one even better than the first one, Failure to Match. This one, the premise is she is a matchmaker. And she's working for this billionaire, and they've been contracted to find him a match, but he has just been like the most difficult client to match ever. And so she is now like doing this intensive with him where she like lives with him in order to like better find out who he should be with. He obviously is not like the driving force behind this. His aunt is like the driving force behind this like matchmaking scheme, and so he's not like fully invested, and so she's having to live with him, and he's like annoyed that she's living with him, and then they fall in love. Again, it's romance. But like I said, super spicy and a delight. Like, read them super fast. I read each of these like in a single day, and just like the perfect like brain candy. The next book I read was The Familiar by Leigh Bardugo, and this book was fantastic, but it was not what I was promised, okay? I'm going to tell you what I was promised so you don't go into this book thinking this is what you're going to get. I was promised that this was a historical fantasy taking place in Spain. All of that is true. That was about vampires. Where? I don't see them anywhere. I don't see a single vampire. There's like one character who I guess you could call a vampire, in that they have some similar traits to a vampire. But it's a stretch. It's a stretch. It's a stretch. Like, honestly, this has more in common with, like, The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue than Twilight. Or any vampire novel. Twilight was just the first one that I could think of off the dome. Like, there's, like, kind of like a curse situation that's set up. You know? That gives this guy some vampire-esque qualities. But largely, we're not even focused on this guy. Like, the guy that has, like, the vampire qualities. Our main girl is this girl who is a young... She's, like, in her early 20s. This young woman working as, like, a servant in this wealthy-ish... They're, like, the bottom tier of the wealthy family's house. And she has Jewish ancestry. And this is a time in Spain where Jewish people were being, like... executed. You were not allowed to be anything but, like, Catholic. This Jewish ancestry that she's having to keep secret so no one, like... And she also has some magic. She has some magic powers, but her magic powers are connected to her Judaism. And so when it kind of comes out that she has magic, and her employer, this woman that is, like I said, the bottom tier of the wealthy, wants to use this, like, magic to get her more invitations to go to more wealthy people's houses. She's trying to use this young woman who has magic powers as, like, a way to help her climb the social ladder. But the young woman who has the magic powers has to be very careful because her magic is tied to Judaism. And so if she's not, like, careful about how she uses it, it could, like, reveal the fact that she is Jewish. And therefore, okay, slowly unfold from there. We're following, like, a whole cast of characters, and I think they are really interesting and also, like, quite unlikable. Like, all of them have elements that are, like, you're like, ew. Like, even our main girl we're following, you're like, what are you doing? And then there's, like, a contest with magic, and yeah, I can understand why this was explained as, like, a historical fantasy with vampires, because, like, it is hard to explain what is actually happening. But I just want you to know that if you're going into this, like, really excited for the vampires, the vampire element is really quite small. Yeah, the historical fantasy is a really strong element. There's, like, a competition element that comes into play. I really loved the characters. I really loved how complex they were. I enjoyed the story overall, but just a warning, the vampire element, much smaller than I was promised. And then the last thing I read in August was a Cuckoo Bananas book. We love a Cuckoo Bananas book. This book was unhinged, okay? And I'm going to tell you the premise, and then I am going to spoil it because I just need to talk about the ending. So I will give you a warning before I talk about the spoiler, because maybe you want to read this. So I decided to pick up Pen Pal by T.J Newman. I have talked about the series Ruthless Creatures. Is that the series name? I don't know if that's the series name. The Mafia romance series that is by T.J Newman is, like, one of my favorite Kindle Unlimited books ever. It is, like, a silly, goofy, ridiculous time, and the girlies get kidnapped, like, every book, sometimes multiple times per book. There's shootouts. It's, like, so dramatic, pretty spicy, but, like, so much fun. I love it so much. Okay. I, like, recommend it highly. It's a silly, goofy time. Okay, so I knew I was not expecting, like, a serious literary fiction novel when I picked up Pen Pal. Pen Pal, I was like, the premise, as I was explained it, was that it's this girl who starts getting letters from a jail. And that is true. That is part of the premise. The premise is it's this young woman whose husband has recently died, left. We're not really, like, super clear what happened at the beginning of the novel. And she's kind of, like, dealing with the, like, grief and working through that trauma. At the same time, she has kind of starts to develop a relationship with this, like, bad boy biker who lives above a bar in town. And she is also getting creepy letters from some guy in prison. And also, she thinks her house might be haunted by a ghost. A lot going on for this girl. There's a lot going on for this girl. And it took twists and turns that I never would have expected. Okay? That's the premise. It's a silly, goofy... Do I recommend it? I don't know. I don't know if I recommend it, guys. I don't not recommend it because I did have such a silly, crazy Cuckoo Bananas time. It is, like... But it's, like, not a romance fully. And it's, like, not a thriller fully. And so, like, I don't know who I'd recommend it to. But if this sounds like you would enjoy it, and you want to have a silly Cuckoo Bananas time, like, yeah, obviously read that. But, like, if you want to have a romance time, don't read it. And if you want just, like, a pure thriller... I don't know if you would want it either, because there is, like, kind of a lot of romance. So it lives in this weird liminal space between thriller and romance, and also Cuckoo Bananas. Weird space between liminal cuckoo bananas. Okay, I'm gonna give a spoiler. So if you're gonna read this, skip ahead. I will put the time of where you need to skip to. Okay, great. She's dead the whole time. The whole book, she's dead. So actually, she's the ghost that's haunting her house. She's haunting her own house. She's like, oh, this ghost is causing all sorts of problems. I'm having all these issues with like the lights flickering. And she's causing the problems with the lights flickering. Okay. Her husband actually murdered her. Her husband did murder her. And so she's dead and a new family lives in her house. And so some of the ghost things are also this like new family that currently lives in her house. And the biker boyfriend that lives above the bar, that was her real life boyfriend. It was her real life boyfriend. He also died because her husband killed her biker boyfriend and her. And her husband is in jail. The letters are coming from her biker boyfriend. He's writing them from jail. I can't remember why he's pretending to be in jail to write them. I think maybe to jog her memory. But yeah, she's dead the whole time. I just like was truly it came out of left field. I just like wasn't expecting it, and it just knocked me in my butt. Okay. If I feel like this year more than any other year, I've been just reading the most. Just how did these people come up with this? Like, so fun. I like. It's not like I'm having a bad time reading these books, but it's just like, this is cuckoo bananas. This is cuckoo bananas. This is probably the cuckooest bananaist book I've read so far this year. Again, I did not have a bad time. I didn't have a bad time. It was enjoyable. I was confused the whole time. I was like, where are we going? It also got kind of scary at points. I was like reading it before bed because I was like, oh, this is going to be just like a fun, giggly little time. And it got scary at points. I got scared and I had to switch to a different book. But, yeah, I guess that's my recommendation for that one. Okay. I think that's all I have for you. Oh, I'm also working, just so the girlies know, I've also been working on this little guy, and I've been crying. I'm not that far into it. I'm only like, I don't know if you can see that, but I'm like this far on chapter 6 of the slides I've made. And I've already cried so many times. Oh my gosh, this book is such a bad time. Like, I mean, it's beautiful and stunning and amazing and like so good and one of my favorite books of all time, but it's a bad time. Like, it's a lot of bad times. So I've been working on that. It'll be a few weeks. Also next week, hopefully, for the Magnolia Parks girlies, I hope the final video from the first 2 books of the Magnolia Park series should hopefully be out next Friday. That's the goal. It's so long. It's so long. It's so long, guys. I think it was like almost 4 hours of footage. I've edited like the first hour of footage. And so now I just have like a little over 2 hours left to edit. So we'll see. We'll see if that actually gets done over the next week or not. But nothing we can do about it. No. Okay. Well, I will see you in the next one. I will see you in the next video. Have a great rest of your day. Bye.